It's a similar story for Northern Ireland, where any isolated showers will clear this evening. Clear skies mean it will be chilly tonight, but temperatures should stay above freezing. The daytime showers will mostly die out this evening, leaving a largely dry but chilly night under clear skies. That's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Good afternoon, it's 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Actually, no, it's just 1 minute after 4. That Emily Carver, she took an extra minute of my show. Hello and welcome, I'm Nana Akua. We are live, and for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course, it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and also comedian Leo Kearse. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 2 minutes past 4. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB Newsroom. The Labour leader's accusing the Chancellor of gambling the mortgages and finances of the British people with what he calls casino economics. Sir Keir Starmer's echoed claims from the Institute of Fiscal Studies, saying Kwasi Kwarteng's mini-budget puts government debt on an unsustainable rising path, something Mr Kwarteng denies. Speaking this afternoon ahead of the Labour conference, which starts tomorrow, Sir Keir says the mini-budget will do nothing for working-class people.
And after 12 long years of Tory failure, didn't they just show their true colours yesterday? Their driving ideology, make the rich richer and do nothing for working people. Well, this conference is our chance to set out the alternative, to make our case, an economy that works for working people, growth for everyone, everywhere, wherever they are, a fairer, greener future.
Well, Chris Philp, Chief Secretary to the Treasury, told us the whole country will benefit.
I think the real gamble would be maintaining levels of tax that are inappropriately high, which risk deterring investment, which risk disincentivising hard work, and which risk driving individuals and companies out of the United Kingdom. By having competitive tax rates, we're encouraging people to work, encouraging them to invest, and encouraging people and businesses to locate here in the UK.
Former Tory Health Secretary Stephen Dorrell, who defected to the Lib Dems, told GB News the mini-budget takes the Conservative Party back to their beliefs of the early 1970s.
One of the things that you have to deliver as a government is sound money. And my principal concern this week is that the actions of the government are undermining the commitment to sound money, which was the essential bedrock of both the Thatcher and Major administrations.
The Labour Party has pledged to create a national care service, claiming 13% of care homes need improvement. The party says private equity firms are failing in their duties to residents. Plans for the service include improvements in pay, workers' rights and training. Arriving in Liverpool this afternoon for his party's conference, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer is expected to set out a number of key policies. Drivers could be paying an extra £5 for a tank of petrol due to a fall in the value of the pound. Motoring organisation the AA says petrol prices would be at least 9 pence per litre cheaper if the pound had maintained its mid-February value instead of dropping to a 37-year low. Drivers are being encouraged to shop around to find more competitive forecourts. Elsewhere, Ukraine's president is urging his fellow countrymen who are forced to fight for the Russian army to sabotage it from within. Volodymyr Zelensky says people in parts of Ukraine which are being controlled by Moscow should resist any efforts to mobilise them to fight. However, if they do get conscripted, they should do everything they can to help their homeland. His address comes as the Kremlin launched so-called referendums yesterday aimed at annexing 4 occupied regions of Ukraine.
If you still find yourself in the Russian army, sabotage any enemy activity. Send us any relevant information about occupiers, their bases, HQs, ammo caches, and with the first opportunity, move to our side. Do everything to save your life and free Ukraine.
King Charles has been photographed with his red box for the first time. The picture, taken last week, shows the King carrying out official government duties at Buckingham Palace. Red boxes hold papers from government ministers in the UK and the Commonwealth. And Roger Federer has bid farewell to professional tennis, bowing out with a doubles defeat, a very emotional one at that, at the O2 Arena in London. The 20-time Grand Slam champion teamed up with old rival and friend Rafael Nadal for the Laver Cup match, but lost to an American pair. The Swiss player announced his plans to retire from the sport last week. And he'll be greatly missed. This is GB News. We're bringing more as it happens now, though. Let's return to Nana Akua.
Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 8 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. At last, somebody is talking sense. Now, first of all, my experience of the police has been exemplary. They've been there when I've needed them, which is thankfully hardly ever. And the officers that I have dealt with have been nothing but respectful. But thank goodness for the new Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, who's putting a halt to all the woke brigade nonsense. She told police chiefs to spend less time on diversity and concentrate on fighting crime. Mrs. Braverman wrote, "Unfortunately, there is a perception that the police have had to respond to spend too much time on symbolic gestures than actually fighting criminals. This must change. Initiatives on diversity and inclusion should not take precedence over common sense policing." Hear, hear, thank goodness, hallelujah. I mean, she's got a point. Let's start with taking the knee in support of Black Lives Matter, the far-left, Marxist extreme pressure group. Do what you like in your spare time, but whilst you're policing the streets, the last thing I want to see is you in such a vulnerable position as on your knees, losing all credibility in the false belief that you are showing your support against racists. Advice, by the way, to anyone who wants to prove that they're not racist is easy. Just don't be racist and treat others as you'd like to be treated. No amount of kneeling can achieve that, and when you come across people being racist, especially officers in your own force, call them out. Then there's the rainbow helmets, laces and face paint and all that. For example, Superintendent James Sutherland with his rainbow helmet, which he wore in support of anti-homophobia campaigns in Cambridge. Look, I don't care what anyone's sexual preference is, and frankly, it's none of my business. But I don't want to see the police compromising their ability to do their jobs by taking part in proceedings of an event that they are supposed to be policing. It's just common sense. To do a job effectively, they have to be distanced in some way. It's just like being a parent. And when you can't even get a policeman to turn up for a burglary, it sticks in my craw that 5 will show up after a tweet that may have hurt someone's feelings. And it doesn't really help with the odd rogue officer damaging their reputation further. There was the murder of marketing executive Sarah Everard by a London officer, and then there's been a handful of other racist and homophobic incidents. On the whole, police are clearly a talented, dedicated bunch. Look at how seamless Her Majesty's funeral was. But it is time to shift the focus from this all-consuming woke and focus on giving out police what they need to get the job done. So, put your money where your mouth is, Suella. Reopen police stations, increase investment, simplify procedures to release officers from behind the desk to back on the beat. Can you blame them for doing the jobs that are maybe a little bit easier? I mean, there's probably far too much paperwork involved in the other stuff. She is right on many levels, but whilst I agree with her comments, a Martin Luther King quote springs to mind. It's all right to tell a man to lift himself by his own bootstraps, but it is cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. Suella, given the bootstraps, just make sure they're not rainbow laces. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. At 4:20, it's the Great British Debates, and this hour I'm asking, is docking benefits a good incentive to work more? In leaked audio when Liz Truss was the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, a position she held until 2019, she said workers need more graft. And yesterday, in the mini-budget, Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng announced that low-paid part-time workers will have their benefits reduced if they do not take active steps to earn more. And under the new rule, claimants working up to 15 hours a week at the minimum wage will have to look for more or better paid work. But is it fair or even realistic to deduct benefits in this way? Do workers need more graft? At 4:50, Angela Levin will join me in the studio for the Royal Roundup. And on the agenda today, an official picture of King Charles, which has been released, showing him for the first time carrying out his new duties as head of state. And then, of course, the Mirror, who are reporting that the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, couldn't believe that she wouldn't be paid for carrying out royal duties. Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Then at 5 o'clock in Difficult Conversations, I'll be discussing how to live with a terminal disease. Ashley Ellerton is living with breast cancer and doctors gave her 3 years to live, but her husband believes a number of errors made her physicians, which led to late diagnosis. When trying to explain the news to her kids, she told them that she might not live as long as other mums. Well, that's coming up in the next hour. Stay tuned. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. As ever, get in touch. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and also comedian Leo Kearse. Right, so welcome back. Lovely to see you, Lizzie.
Lovely to see you.
Traitor, she was on Mark's show last night.
Traitor!
Yes,
Traitor.
Lizzie. So, really good to see you. Talk to me, what do you think then? I know this woke brigade nonsense, I did steal the quote from you, I couldn't resist it.
The woke police. Let's reclaim our police. Let's do what they should do. I mean, have you ever seen a policeman sort of get a robber in a rainbow car? I mean, it's just ludicrous. Can police do what they're supposed to do, which is police? I'm so sick of this policing, political policing. They shouldn't have any ideology or favour anyone or anything. They're supposed to be police. Do what you're supposed to do. That's what's wrong. We need to reclaim the police.
Yeah. What do you think, Leo? Rainbow laces, face paint?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, it's the police, it's not the circus. I'd understand all that if we were going to see some clowns, but, you know, they're supposed to be driving police cars, not clown cars. I used to work with the police. I was a criminal intelligence analyst, and, you know, in London, you know, after the Macpherson report, obviously, there was the murder of Stephen Lawrence, which exposed sort of institutional racism in the police, and there were issues. That was 25 years ago. I don't think you can say that the police are the same organisation now that they were then. I think a lot of the issues around racism have been fixed, quite frankly, and for them to still be policing according to worrying about looking racist, this is what led to grooming gangs still operating openly and freely in a lot of towns, and hardly any convictions have been brought against them compared to the scale of the problem, because the police are scared of looking racist. And again, with the riots in Leicester between Hindu and Muslim gangs, the police are scared of getting involved because they think if they arrest anyone, they're going to be called racist. It shouldn't matter. If you're not being racist, you shouldn't be worried about being called racist. You should just go in and apply the law fairly and evenly, regardless of what the ethnicity of the person is.
And that's very true, because my friend who was a policeman with those terrible scenes in Leicester said they were afraid because they would be seen as being racist, which is crazy. You arrest the person for the crime, not to do with their colour, creed or whatever. That's what it should be.
Absolutely.
But I think with this is now, these political symbolic gestures have to be stopped, not just in police, but we've got them in sport. We've got it in the NHS, in education, in the military. It really needs to be stopped.
Yeah, I don't know how it's become. It's almost like a runaway train, hasn't it? I mean, people are so frightened of saying the wrong thing. If you say that, then somebody's going to think you're racist, and the worst insult you could ever be given is that you're called racist.
Yeah.
So it's almost so I'd better not do that just in case. And the worst thing about that is you compromise your position by believing that, OK, I don't want to be called racist, so I'm not going to say.
Exactly, which is what the police have been doing. And you can imagine if the rioters in Leicester were white football fans, the police would have no problem at all going in there and applying the law and hitting some people with truncheons. They'd have no problem with that. And the trouble with equality, diversity and inclusion is it's baked into every organisation. It's not just the police. It's not just people being worried about being called racist. If you're called racist, that's now an HR issue. And so every organisation has equality, diversity and inclusion departments which can make your life an absolute misery and can fire you, and everybody's walking on eggshells to not fall on the wrong side.
But police have got to get grip of knife crime. I mean, it's gone up 16%. It is absolute. I mean, it is so scary in London now. I mean, my sons are scared to go home on their own. It really is. They need to get a grip and police properly. And it really makes me cross when I see them dancing, and having the rainbow masks on and on their cars. I mean, what is this about? What are we trying to do?
But like
this
a lot of
ideology has to stop,
The officers, I mean, and as I said at the beginning, the police, for me, have been excellent. I haven't experienced any awful behaviour from them, and I may think differently if that was the case. But I think it's time that we stopped going on, no, there's structural racism, institutional racism, and I think we start to get people to be accountable for their individual actions, because if I do something racist, it's me being racist. It's not the organisation around me. If nobody says anything about my racism, then those who are around me are also culpable of the racism. It's not a structure, the building itself and the rules themselves are not racist because there are rules against it. It is the people that are actually perpetrating the racism who are the racists, who need to be outed out, pulled out of that and thrown out of the force. It's individuals need to be called to account, and I think that's the issue with
But Nana, I'm glad you brought it up at the state funeral. The police were impeccable.
Amazing.
I mean, absolutely amazing. But I'm afraid to say, I, for one, have lost faith in the police. I had an incident with a stalker, and because I rang with the complaint about it from a different area, they were saying, well, this isn't your area, and it all got, didn't get sorted. And in the end, I thought, oh, gosh, what's the point?
Well, I think there's a lot of paperwork, though, and there's a lot of restrictions and a lot of, all the police stations have vanished. And so that's why I said that really I respect what Suella is saying. She's right. But I think the reason the focus has shifted is because all their resources have shifted. So they have got literally nothing to do the jobs that they need to be doing with. So it's all very well saying to them, oh, we're going to focus, get rid of diversity, inclusion, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. But if you don't give them the funding, if you don't give them the support they need, then what you're asking them to do is actually impossible.
Yeah.
Well, I hope what she says is true, this new Home Secretary, because Priti Patel didn't seem to do anything that she said was going to happen, never seemed to happen.
Well, she did her best.
She did her best, maybe. Well, Rwanda, I don't know if the plane's taken off yet, but
no.
I really do hope she means this and there's action taken.
Well, I think Suella does, and I love the fact she's got a legal background, which means that a lot of this nonsense that's been happening will probably not work on her watch. But if you just joined us, welcome. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, after the break, it is time for our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is docking benefits a good incentive to work more? Now, in his mini-budget yesterday, Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng, a lot of people saying he's throwing the dice, it's like a roulette. I don't think so. I think it's about time somebody did. He announced that low-paid part-time workers will have their benefits reduced if they do not take active steps to earn more. Now, under the new rule, claimants working up to 15 hours a week at the minimum wage will have to look for more work and better paid. Send us your thoughts on this one. I mean, maybe perhaps you're somebody in that situation and you're thinking that's really out of order. Or perhaps you're somebody, you know somebody who is actually taking advantage of the situation. Get in touch at gbnews.uk or tweet me at GBNews. There is a poll up right now and I'm asking, is docking benefits a good incentive to work more? Cast that vote now. We'll be back after the weather.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Good afternoon. If you've just tuned in, where have you been? This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. And it is time for our Great British Debate. I'm asking, is docking benefits a good incentive to work more? Now, the Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, has declared low-paid part-time workers will have their benefits reduced if they do not take active steps to earn more. Now, under a reform announced in the mini budget, which was like a huge budget, was like a crater of a budget, but we're calling it mini for now. Now, this change will affect about 120,000 people. And that's, that's just a round figure right now, but it's probably more than that. The Treasury specified certain groups will remain exempt from sanctions, including people who are unable to work because of long-term sickness or a disability. So what do you think? Does tightening universal credit, because that is what the benefit is called, those rules, set a precedent for the future of benefits, and how strict will these rules get? So for the great British debate this hour, I'm asking, is docking benefits a good incentive to work more? I'm joined now by the head of money advice, Gary Vaughan. Gary, thank you very much for joining me. OK, so what is the situation then? Is it specifically universal credit and that's the overall benefit?
Yes, yeah. I mean, previously it used to be job seekers allowance, but now that's become universal credit. Yeah.
So tell me, what is the Chancellor proposing?
This specific change is about what's called, and it sounds very boring, the administrative earnings threshold, which is basically the amount you need to earn before you start getting asked by the job centre to earn more. It's always been one of the plans of universal credit that people would have what was known as in-work conditionality, that they would be expected to work as much as they could, to earn as much as they could, to reduce their universal credit or get them off universal credit altogether. That was always one of the purposes of universal credit. And the sanctions regime was introduced right from the off. It's always been there. I mean, going right back to 1948, we've had benefit sanctions. It was tightened up under universal credit, and the latest announcements in the budget were, I'm not calling it a mini budget either.
No,
the latest changes in the budget were a continuation of that, aimed not so much at the non-working claimant, but at the working claimant.
Do you think people like the fact they get this benefit, so they sort of work to the limit that they should, and then they allow the benefit to take more? Because that sounds like what the Chancellor is sort of suggesting in the way he's changing this.
It suggests that, but unfortunately, the DWP's own evidence doesn't support that.
Right.
There's been a number of pieces of research that the Department for Work and Pensions themselves commissioned, one on behalf of the National Audit Office, and it just simply said sanctions are often just counterproductive. They don't work, and it's the relationship between the claimant and their work coach in the job centre that really matters. Plus, of course, the availability of jobs and childcare and things of that.
But if they don't do that, then it will start to go down, is what he's saying. So it'll be docked if they don't start to do something. Possibly there'll be a time limit on it or something.
Yeah. It sounds as if, oh, yeah, that will work. It doesn't. There's a...
Why won't it work, though?
Well, all the research shows that there was something called counterproductive involvement, in that people actually who were sanctioned moved further away from the job market because they lost trust in the job centre. And most of the sanctions that are currently applied are for failing to attend work-focused interviews. They're not about turning down jobs. They're not about not doing enough. They're about not turning up at the job centre on time when they've asked you to turn up. And so you can be sanctioned for turning up late. You can be sanctioned for missing an appointment because your child's ill, you know. And it's those kinds... I mean, 98% of sanctions are for missing work-focused interviews.
Right.
So although it looks like it's a very strict policy, in practice...
It doesn't work.
I mean, my judgment of any government policy is, does it work?
And in your view?
And sanctions, effectively, as they are currently administered with a great deal of discretion from the work coaches, simply aren't an effective way of getting people into work.
Well, listen, Gary, stay right there, because I'm going to bring in Christine Jardine. Christine, thank you very much for joining me. She's a Liberal Democrat MP for Edinburgh West. Christine, what do you think then? Are you in support of this, though? Sort of potentially docking benefits to incentivise people to come to work or get more work?
No, and I agree with your previous guest. It doesn't work. I mean, my constituents who come from to me, who are on universal credit and who are working, people want to feed their families, put a roof over their heads, and they do the best that they can. And a lot of people who will be affected and told that they have to work more simply can't. And then someone's going to have to judge whether they can or they can't. And we've seen that the box ticking exercises that people use with universal credit just don't work. But the basic thing is, and it actually comes back to that Martin Luther King quote that you used. It's all very well to tell people to pull themselves up by their bootstrings, but they have to have bootstrings. And what the government is doing here is taking away those bootstrings and making it much more difficult.
But Christine, there's a huge amount of availability of work at the moment in the market. I mean, we've got the highest level of available employment since, I don't know, since ever. So why would these people not be able to get more jobs, or more work is what people might be asking?
Well, that would assume that these jobs are where they live, that they're qualified for them and that they're able to do them, that they're not a carer who has to do hours of caring which doesn't suit the employer, that they have small children, that they need to get childcare. It's taking a big stick to people rather than saying, well, how do we make it easier for you to work? That's what's wrong with this. It's not actually appreciating the problem. And like everything else that we saw in this so-called mini budget, which has got nothing mini about it, everything else just shows how completely out of touch this government is. They seem to have no concept of what universal credit actually is, how it works. You heard your previous guest talking about all the evidence being that sanctions not only don't work, they're counterproductive. The tax burden, they talk about this £50 billion that it's going to cost these tax cuts. Where are they finding that money from? Why is that money not being invested in helping people heat their homes and feed their children this winter? They're completely out of touch with the problems that ordinary people in this country are facing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to bring Gary back into this because, Gary, what should the government be doing then instead of that then? Because obviously we don't want people to be literally spending all their time on benefits, which is what's happening. A lot of people, the most amount of people getting the benefits of those actually working. So what should the government be doing?
We need to be looking at measures that will get people into work and keep people in work. Job retention is actually crucial in these circumstances. We need to be looking at not just childcare arrangements, but adult care arrangements. More people are outside of the job market because they're caring for an elderly or disabled relative than they are because they're caring for children. And that's something I think often gets overlooked. We often think of the care as being a childcare issue. It's as much an adult care issue. I think we need to be looking at what kind of training is available and what kind of support people need to not only find a job, keep a job. I've been doing some recruitment recently, and the number of times we see people applying for jobs that they're not qualified for simply because the job centre has told them you have to apply for 10 jobs a week.
Yeah.
And that's a waste of everybody's time.
But Christine, final word to you on this then. What was your sort of thoughts then, in general, to the Chancellor's budget? I thought I might ask you, seeing as I've got you on. What did you think of that? This part of it, your view, and then your overall thoughts on it?
I was pretty taken aback. I'm tempted to go as far as horrified by what I heard from the Chancellor, because it did, as I've said, show just how completely out of touch this government appears to be with the problems that ordinary people are facing. They have had all summer to come up with something, and what they do is they wait until it's almost too late in terms of the help for companies with their energy bills, until it's too late for many companies, and then they come up with something which doesn't go far enough. Then we get this so-called mini budget on the last day before a recess, so there's little scrutiny, and it's got the biggest tax cuts for 50 years, and the whole thing in its entirety is a massive gamble with this country's future. Massive gamble. It involves borrowing that could be unsustainable. It's simply, it's inept. And it's as I say, it's a huge risk, and it's a risk we might all pay for.
Well, I hear you, Christine. It is a big risk, but could we carry on doing the same thing? We're getting the same result. Christine Jardine, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. She's a Liberal Democrat MP for Edinburgh West. And also, Gary, thank you very much for joining me in the studio. It's good to talk to you as well.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, well, let's stay with me. This is GBNews. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, we will continue with the Great British Debate. I'm asking, is docking benefits a good incentive to work more? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and comedian Leo Kearse. Also on the way at 5, difficult conversations. And this week, we'll be discussing how to live with terminal cancer. Ashley Ellerton is living with breast cancer and doctors gave her just 3 years to live. But her husband believes a number of errors made by her physicians led to a late diagnosis. When trying to explain the news to her kids, she told them that she might not live as long as other mummies. She'll be in the studio live. And at 5:40, have we lost the war on obesity? A top NHS advisor has warned that GPs and the majority of doctors are ignoring patient weight issues. All of that and more, but first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 4:34. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The Labour leader's accusing the Chancellor of gambling the mortgages and finances of the British people with what he's calling casino economics. Sir Keir Starmer echoed claims from the Institute of Fiscal Studies, which say the Chancellor's mini-budget puts government debt on an unsustainable rising path, something Kwasi Kwarteng denies. Speaking this afternoon, Sir Keir says the mini-budget does nothing for working people.
And after 12 long years of Tory failure, didn't they just show their true colours yesterday? Their driving ideology, make the rich richer and do nothing for working people. Well, this conference is our chance to set out the alternative, to make our case, an economy that works for working people, growth for everyone, everywhere, wherever they are, a fairer, greener future.
When arriving in Liverpool this afternoon for his party's conference, Sir Keir is expected to set out a number of key policies, among them the pledge to create a national care service. Labour claims 13% of care homes need improving. Plans for the service include better pay, workers' rights and training. In other news, Ukraine's president is urging his fellow countrymen who are forced to fight for the Russian army to sabotage it from within. Volodymyr Zelensky says people in parts of Ukraine, which are being controlled by Moscow, should resist any efforts to mobilise them to fight. His address comes as the Kremlin launched so-called referendums yesterday aimed at annexing 4 occupied regions of Ukraine. And King Charles has been photographed with his red box for the first time. The picture, taken last week, shows the King carrying out official government duties at Buckingham Palace. Red boxes hold papers from government ministers in the UK and the Commonwealth. TV online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. It's back to Nana Akua in just a moment.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel, And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Good afternoon. It's just fast approaching 39 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are live on TV, online and on digital radio. Don't forget, you can also download the GB News app and you can check out all the programmes here. I'm Nana Akua. Now, it's time for our Great British Debate, and I'm asking, is docking benefits a good incentive to work more? The Chancellor has said that low-paid part-time workers will have their benefits reduced if they do not take active steps to earn more. Now, that's under a reform announced in his whopper of a mini-budget. But is this the right angle to take? Do you believe that people are actually work shy? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is docking benefits a good incentive to work more? Before we have a chat with my panel, let's have a look at what you've been saying. John says, given that many have been forced to take 0-hour contracts and don't know whether their hours will amount to full or part-time, they take what they get. I think it's a manipulative ploy. Yes, there are benefit scroungers, but the language of the current policies are alarming. Alan says, it's not that straightforward for many people. Everyone's situation can be very different, and that should be taken into consideration. But Graham says, yes, no one who is able-bodied should expect to sit on their backside at home, having their existence paid for through the hard work of others. Well, that's very distinct. Let's see what my panel will make of that. I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and also comedian Leo Kearse. Leo, your thoughts?
Oh, so you asked me just because I'm Scottish. You
Yeah,
assume I've got experience of claiming benefits.
Have you?
Well, you're absolutely right. I think the thing is, like where I grew up, people see the benefit system almost as a career. There's ways of gaming it. It's so complex that, you know, for a regular person who actually needs it, it can be very difficult to get the help you need. But if you put the effort into learning it, and you know you're taught by your friends and your family, you can make a good living from the benefit system. You know, you can get diagnosed with various things, you know, ADHD, you know, other sort of made-up nonsensical things. And, you know, you can drag your baby around various doctors till it gets diagnosed with autism, and then ka-ching, you're making loads of money. And all your housing, your transport and everything is paid for. And it makes it very difficult for those people to then get out of the system and get onto work. So it's good that the government is at least trying to move people away from benefits and into sort of productive parts of the economy.
It was interesting, though, because when I spoke to my guests, they all said that it was a bad idea. I mean, Lizzie, what's your take on this?
No, benefits shouldn't be a lifestyle. And I think, sadly, people get reliant on it and then become lazy. And I'm really sorry to say this. I mean, I'm from my mother made me work so hard. She even pretended once that I was advertising an orange, and I turned up, had to put this huge orange outfit on all day, walking down the high street in it. But I earned money. Don't be work shy. And and look at what's going on with the economy at the minute. And this is why I like this budget, mini budget, more of a mega budget, because it's changing the culture. It's encouraging people to work. You're going to have more money in your pocket, which is a great thing, and the economy needs it. We need to grow.
Well, you have more money in your pocket if you earn £150,000. But actually, that's not quite right, actually, because if you work out all the other benefits and the other bits of tax and stuff, it doesn't actually work out.
Basic rate's been cut from 20 to 19%. The national insurance has been cut. So no matter...
I'm not complaining.
No matter how much you're earning.
If you're vulnerable and you need the universal credit, you will be looked after by the government. But those that are lazy, that don't turn up for the jobs, say if there is a job interview and they don't show up, yes, I do think your benefits should be cut. If you're given a job and you're thinking, oh, I'm actually worthy more of that, is maybe painting a church, and you still don't do it, then yeah, you should be cut because you are, physically well to do that job. You need to earn money. So yes, cut the benefits.
Well, the premise of the benefit is it's not supposed to be a lifestyle. It's supposed to be something that tides you over if you end up in a difficult situation. That's how it should work. But I can remember when I tried to claim benefits, because, I'd been earning quite a bit, and then I went to claim benefits. They wouldn't even believe me. So then it took me 6 months. I had to show this, show that, prove this, prove that. By that time, I'd paid a lot of money into the tax system. But when it came to me needing it, at that point, it was like, nah, it can't be true, this, that, that. And in the end, when there used to be that advert that would say, we'll find you and we'll get you, and that one. Do you remember that? You probably don't. But it was basically saying that they'll come and get you. So in the end, I said, no, I'm coming to see you. And I went to the tax office in Euston, which is in London, and I had a meeting. I pushed the appointment because otherwise I was going to lose everything.
Yeah.
And eventually they then realised that they owed me quite a bit because I was a single mum. I was entitled to all the benefits that I'd asked for, and they eventually paid me the lump sum. And I had to go and force their hand, yet I had contributed a lot of money to the tax system myself.
Exactly. But if you're shirking your job, search commitments, and you're not turning up for those interviews, and you keep making excuses, I'm sorry, the benefits go.
Yeah, and I love it when the Guardian says, only 0.4% of benefit claimants are fraudulent. If only 0.4% of benefit claimants are fraudulent, I must have known every single one of them. Like, it's pretty widespread.
Yeah, I think there's almost a... I don't know whether it's people don't want to admit that the system can be so easily manipulated. It sort of reminds me of the whole migrant crisis, where people say, no, everyone's legitimate, no. And it's like, look, can we just break this down and be honest with ourselves? I know that there are people who definitely need benefits. I'm not saying that shouldn't be the case. Absolutely, those people should get the benefit. And if they are looking for work and doing everything that is required, there should be a criteria with which you get the benefits. It can't just be, oh, yeah, you get it anyway. And I would apply that same to people who are coming across the channel and stuff like that. There has to be a reality check. We have to be honest with ourselves. And there are a lot of people taking advantage, although I'm not saying...
After month after month, and they still haven't even gone for a job interview, surely. I mean, no more hands out. It should be, hands up. Let's try and get a job.
I like that. No more hands out. Hands up. Hands up.
And it's good for you working. It's good to have a focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good for... That's why we've got so much depression. Like 50% of women are on antidepressants, which means one of yous are.
Well, most 50% of men are then.
Well, I don't know what you're on.
But yeah, people will be happier if they're working.
Yeah, well, it depends what job
mentally and socially.
Depends if you're doing a job that you like doing, because there's a lot of people with their carers and things like that. I do agree that there needs to be a more sort of individual approach with this as well, because I think a one-size-fits-all doesn't quite work out. So there needs to be...
very much so. And my father used to always say to me, if you do something you love, it doesn't ever feel like work. So thankfully, that's why I'm here.
Well, listen, this show's nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voice to the show, your opportunity to tell us what you think about the topics that we're discussing. Right, where should we go? Oh, should we go to Oxfordshire? It's very nice, right?
Very nice.
Very nice. Let's go to Oxfordshire. Let's have a chat with our great British voice, Mike Donovan. Hello, Mike. We're wearing the opposite. We're like opposite. He's got the red in there, and I've got that. Yes, anyway, Mike, go on then. What do you think? What's your view?
I think we're making people on benefits the problem. The solution, tax credits are being created by various governments that have de-incentivized people to work. So the issue isn't the people who are on benefits. Quite often they need it. The issue is the dependencies the government has created over the years. New Labour created so many tax credits under Gordon Brown. It discriminated against married couples. There was the real issue here is a structural problem that we have in the problem. I'm what I call the SME community, small, medium enterprise. We employ 60% of the electorate, and they make it very difficult for us. I know a lot of people who don't want to employ people because it's become such a complex operation. Government red tape, bureaucracy has just increased exponentially over the last 30 years. And the SME community is the fundamental building block of our country. And yet most of these, the recent budget, it never really caters for building the business back up on the ground as it should be done. I mean, when my daughter and I, throughout lockdown, we decided, we found out how many things in the house were made in Great Britain. Very few.
Hardly.
I think there were 3.
Yeah, that's the way it is. We've disincentivised people to make things in this country. Mike, we could talk all day on this, and we will do. But thank you very much for your thoughts. That's Mike Donovan. He's our great British voice. He's there in Oxfordshire. Yeah, there's something that he said there that really rung true to me, and that was more to do with the fact that he mentioned the Labour government. And it is true that we, and something you said as well, Lizzie, about a mindset and a mentality that we have a dependency on benefits in a way. Exactly. And I think lockdown created some more of that as well.
Yeah, laziness, and people didn't want to go back to work. They got so used to being at home in their pyjamas, watching a bit of daytime TV, and and then they didn't get back into that work ethic. We've got to encourage people back to work, and that's what this mini budget is doing, I feel.
Right, well, today I've been asking, is docking benefits a good incentive to work more? Lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. James says, I'm a firm believer that all payments to the unemployed should be time limited with a series reduction after a certain period of unemployment. If that doesn't tempt them to find a job, wait a bit longer and stop their benefits altogether. Well, you can't do that. Well, I hear you. I think in the States that's what they do. I think it's 3 months and then that's it. Otis says the problem with a lot of part-time jobs is that your hours can vary every week, making it hard to take a second job. This just seems like kicking those at the bottom of the pile whilst helping those at the top. Elliot says, no, I think the incentive depends on the fundamentally flawed idea that the only reason people are doing low-pay part-time work is because they're lazy. If they're single parents, part-time carers or similar, there may be concrete reasons why they are unable to work longer hours. Well, that's why I was saying there needs to be a more individual approach to it, because whilst I agree with it in principle, I think we need to take account of people's circumstances.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
That's definitely, important. And also the disability allowance.
Well, those people wouldn't be in within...
No, but I think we really have to look at everyone individually, as you said, because everyone is different.
Well, we can do that as well. Well, let's see what Ella says. She says, who do they think is going to do the low-paid jobs if everyone is a low-paid job, if in a low-paid job gets forced out to find better ones? And where are these better-paid jobs coming from? This is just more unicorns and sunlit uplands nonsense. I like that. Yeah, there is that as well. Better-paid jobs, where are you going to find them? And they've created this way of working that's made a lot of the jobs, thank goodness they ditched the IR35.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. If you don't know about it, we will talk about it. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow. And Ed says there's plenty of jobs out there. Some are just too lazy to look for them. Right, well, let's see what it says on Twitter, because we've got a poll out throughout the show asking, is docking benefits a good incentive to work more? Currently, 72% of you say yes. Well, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio now. On the way, Angela Levin will join me in the studio for our Royal Roundup, and on the menu, an official picture of King Charles, which has been released. It shows him for the first time carrying out his new duties as head of state. And a nice juicy one here in the Mirror, which reported that the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, couldn't believe that she wouldn't be paid to carry out her royal duties. Do not miss that. That's on the way after this break.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
If you've just joined me, where have you been? This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Don't forget, you can also stream the show live on YouTube. So there is always something going on in the royal household. And of course, this week has been no different. So on the agenda, an official picture of King Charles, it's been released, which shows him for the first time he's carrying out his new duties as head of state. He's got his parents in a picture behind him. Then in the Mirror, they're reporting that the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, couldn't believe that she wouldn't be paid for carrying out royal duties. Well, I'm joined in the studio by royal biographer and author of Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, Angela Levin, to discuss. Well, let's start with King Charles.
Well, King Charles, he looked very relaxed. He had his black tie on and he looked very comfortable. He's had one hand on his red box and the other one gently on the desk. And you felt perhaps this is something saying, I'm going to be, people can reach me more easily, I'm going to be more accessible. And I think we saw that when the coffin came back, when they came back after the Queen died, and a long journey, very, very emotional. And instead of going straight into Buckingham Palace, he and his Queen went and talked to lots of people who were queuing there and shaking hands, even let one woman kiss him. And I felt this is a statement, really. This is, I feel this, you feel this, let's see how we can manage together. And that picture was also very relaxed. He wasn't looking at the camera, as used to happen. He was sort of as if it just caught him in a glance of looking at his work to do. And I thought that was, it was a very nice picture, actually. He looked calm, he looked in control, and it was very positive.
Yeah, I mean, because I just remember the picture that stays with me is the picture at the funeral when they were singing God Save the King, and it looked as though he had a lump in his throat, and it was like suddenly a moment of realisation as we watch, and it's a bittersweet moment, isn't it, that this is what he's been sort of groomed to do, and in achieving that role, it means that your parent is no longer with you. That's
why he didn't want to say all the changes he wanted to make, because it's not fair on his mother, he felt. He didn't want her to die, and he didn't want to sort of say this as if he's keen to do that. But I thought the combination of the huge emotion of being the son of the monarch and the huge emotion of actually being our king and handling things and the royal family in a difficult time was absolutely fascinating. You could see it on his face.
He did so well. I mean,
you could really read it there,
Yeah,
and it was very,
respect for
very
him.
moving. Very, very moving.
He was brilliant. Right, let's move on to Meghan Markle.
Well, there's a new book called Courtiers that has just come out by Valentine Lowe, who works for the Times. He's done being a royal person for 25 years. And what we see is the real Meghan, not the Meghan she pretends to be or acts to be. And one of these things was that she said, as you just said before, that I can't believe I'm not being paid for this. They were in Australia at the time on a very successful tour. She was just pregnant, so everyone was excited and warm. She was very relaxed with people, which they enjoyed. But actually, she didn't even have the basic understanding that she was doing this as part of her job. I mean, to think that she should be paid for it when she had castles, clothes, jewellery, go anywhere, lots of staff, actually takes something to say. And she also thought, why all these people here who came to see her? What a waste of time. She said, what am I doing? Shaking hands with people. As if she didn't know anything about it. She also bullied a lot of the staff. There's been lots of rumours about it, but the extracts that are now available show that she's actually really undermined. She screams at people. She really makes them feel lack of confidence.
Well, obviously, we don't have any actual proof, and these are all allegations, so it's all allegedly. But, I mean, it is quite damning that a lot of people are coming out and saying it. It'll be interesting to see if she does try and push back on these claims that people are making, and whether she gets to speak out. But as you said, it's a year, isn't it, before she can say anything?
It takes a year before you can say anything. And I mean, if she has lots and lots of legal cases lined up to accuse people of saying things, including me just now, instead of saying it won't enhance what people feel about her. Not at all. I mean, there's got to be an end to it.
Do you have any sympathy for her in a way, because I think a lot of this is born out from a lack of understanding of what this was about. I mean, basically, the monarchy, you don't need money if you're the monarchy. Your face is on the money. The money is yours. I mean, the Queen was the face of the money. You're related to somebody who literally is the money. They don't carry money. She didn't quite... do you think she didn't get it?
Well, I know Prince Harry told me that he spent ages telling her what the protocols were and weren't, and what she should do. She had the Queen's, one of her favourite assistants, her Deputy Private Secretary, Samantha Cohen, who she gave to Camilla for 6 months to explain how things work. She is excellent. She was excellent at organising tours. I think there's a dead ear there somewhere that she didn't want to answer. And of course, she also had her Oprah Winfrey interview tied up 6 months before they left. So it was all prepared. So I think it's, I didn't want to know. And I think she felt it was a stepping stone to glory, global glory, I
don't think she understood that the monarchy... I think hopefully now she's seen what has happened, obviously with the Queen Elizabeth the Great, because I think she was incredible. She's seen with the passing, the response that the rest of the world have given. Perhaps that's given her food for thought as to really what the monarchy means, and she may realise she doesn't actually need money. Angela Levin, as always, it's such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming to see me. That is Angela Levin with her Royal Roundup. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. More to come in the next hour. This is GB News. If you just joined me, welcome on board. It's just coming up to 5 o'clock. Now, for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. On the way, in difficult conversations, I'll be joined by Ashley Ellerton, a 27-year-old mother of 3 living with terminal cancer who was misdiagnosed during the pandemic. Then, with prisoners binging on daytime TV, like maybe this morning with Holly and Phil, which, I don't know, I won't say any more than that, but binging like teenagers, I'll be asking, are UK prisoners too soft? Are we losing the war on obesity is the next discussion. All that is on the way, but let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon. It's just gone 5 o'clock. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The Labour leader's accusing the Chancellor of gambling the mortgages and finances of the British people with what he calls casino economics. Sir Keir Starmer's echoed claims from the Institute of Fiscal Studies, saying Kwasi Kwarteng's mini-budget puts government debt on an unsustainable rising path, something Mr Kwarteng denies. Speaking this afternoon, Sir Keir says the government's fiscal plans won't work.
And after 12 long years of Tory failure, didn't they just show their true colours yesterday? Their driving ideology, make the rich richer and do nothing for working people. Well, this conference is our chance to set out the alternative, to make our case, an economy that works for working people, growth for everyone, everywhere, wherever they are, a fairer, greener future.
Well, Chris Philp, Chief Secretary to the Treasury, told us the whole country will benefit.
I think the real gamble would be maintaining levels of tax that are inappropriately high, which risk deterring investment, which risk disincentivising hard work, and which risk driving individuals and companies out of the United Kingdom. By having competitive tax rates, we're encouraging people to work, encouraging them to invest, and encouraging people and businesses to locate here in the UK.
Meanwhile, former Tory Health Secretary Stephen Dorrell, who defected to the Lib Dems, told GB News the mini-budget takes the Conservative Party back to their beliefs of the early 1970s.
One of the things that you have to deliver as a government is sound money. And my concern, my principal concern this week, is that the actions of the government are undermining the commitment to sound money, which was the essential bedrock of both the Thatcher and Major administrations.
The Labour Party has pledged to create a national care service. It claims 13% of care homes need improvement. The party says private equity firms are failing to do in their duties to residents. Plans for the service include improvements in pay, workers' rights and training. Arriving in Liverpool this afternoon, Sir Keir is expected to set out a number of key policies at the party's conference, which starts tomorrow. Drivers could be paying an extra £5 for a tank of petrol due to the fall in the value of the pound. Motoring organisation the AA says petrol prices would be at least 9 pence per litre cheaper if the pound had maintained its mid-February value instead of dropping to a 37-year low. Drivers are being encouraged to shop around to find more competitive forecourts. Elsewhere, Ukraine's president urging his fellow countrymen who are forced to fight for the Russian army to sabotage it from within. Volodymyr Zelensky says people in parts of Ukraine which are being controlled by Moscow should resist any efforts to mobilise them to fight. However, if they do get conscripted, they should do everything they can to help their homeland. His address comes as the Kremlin launched so-called referendums yesterday aimed at annexing 4 occupied regions of Ukraine.
If you still find yourself in the Russian army, sabotage any enemy activity. Send us any relevant information about occupiers, their bases, HQs, ammo caches, and with the first opportunity, move to our side. Do everything to save your life and free Ukraine.
King Charles has been photographed with his red box for the first time. The picture, taken last week, shows the King carrying out official government duties at Buckingham Palace. Red boxes hold papers from government ministers in the UK and the Commonwealth. And Roger Federer has bid farewell to professional tennis, bowing out with a very emotional doubles defeat at the O2 Arena in London. The 20-time Grand Slam champion teamed up with old rival and friend Rafael Nadal for the Laver Cup match, but lost to an American pair. The Swiss player announced his plans to retire from the sport last week. And he will be greatly missed. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now, though, it's back to Nana Akua.
Good afternoon. It is just coming up to 6 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also comedian Leo Kearse. Now, still to come, in just a moment, it's Difficult Conversations, and this week we'll be discussing how to live with a terminal disease. Ashley Ellerton is living with breast cancer. Doctors gave her 3 years to live, but only after a doctor said that she was too young to have breast cancer. Her husband believes a number of errors made by physicians led to a late diagnosis. When trying to explain the news to her children, she told them that she might not live as long as other mummies. At 5:20, it is the Great British Debate, and I'm asking, are UK prisons too soft? The Chief Prisons Inspector, Charlie Taylor, has claimed that too many prisoners are binging on daytime TV like teenagers, saying that prisons have failed to introduce work-style regimes after COVID lockdowns. Former convict turned activist Winston Davies, whose mugging prevention TikTok went viral this week, will join me in the studio. And former Tory Prisons Minister Anne Widdecombe will also join us to discuss. She won't be holding back. And at 5:40, have we lost the war on obesity? A top NHS advisor has warned that GPs and the majority of doctors are ignoring patient weight issues. Stay in touch with us. Email me all your thoughts on all that and more. gbnews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. So it is time now for Difficult Conversations. Ashley Ellerton is a mum of 4 living with terminal cancer. Back in 2020, Ashley was tragically diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer. Now, she bravely fought off the illness and underwent a number of cancer treatments. It was only in June, when Ashley had her gallbladder removed, did they find out that the cancer had spread to other parts of her body. Now, doctors gave Ashley 3 years to live. Her husband believes a number of errors made by their physicians led to a late diagnosis, and the now 27-year-old has 4 beautiful children between the ages of 3 and 9, and she's vowed to fight for her life as long as she can. When trying to explain the devastating diagnosis to her young children, she told them that she might not live as long as other mummies. I'm pleased to say Ashley and her husband join me in the studio. Her husband, Simon, thank you very much for joining me. So it's really nice to meet you both. I read about your story and really was compelled to talk to you because a lot of people go through things where they are misdiagnosed and then other things happen and then it's too late to do anything about it. Actually, tell me a little bit about your story.
I had symptoms. I had a lump in my breast and funny colouring around my breast. My youngest at the time was 5 months old. I went to my GP who said, oh, it's mastitis. And I said, it's absolutely not. So we looked through the risk factors of breast cancer and she said, you're far too young, you've got no family history, so it's not breast cancer. I don't need to refer you to anywhere. And I basically just sat and refused to leave until she did.
You see, that's the thing, is that now I know of a gentleman who I spoke to on the show, and it was during the lockdown, and he actually refused to leave the car park of the GP surgery until somebody saw him. Yeah. Then when they saw him, they realised how serious it was. But these situations are going on and on all the time, people being misdiagnosed. So eventually, the diagnosis of breast cancer was given.
Yeah, in May 2022, just before lockdown, I was diagnosed. I had chemotherapy alone because I couldn't have any of my family there. I had a single mastectomy. I had radiotherapy, and then we got the all clear until symptoms started arising.
And what were the symptoms?
My secondary symptoms was things like headaches, forgetfulness, bone pain. I had swelling near my liver. I had a gallbladder issue, which we think might have arisen from the cancer in my liver, but we can't prove that. And I presented to my teams and my doctors with these signs. The doctors were just saying it's part of your, what's it called? It's like your side effects of your medication, which I thought, well, surely not that many.
Well, Simon, I mean, you've been going through this with Ashley.
Yeah.
I mean, how have you been faring with all this?
It's just, it's been a nightmare. I've got, like I said, 4 small kids who are trying to fit work in and, I'm having to take time away to help my partner. But it's just, you come to realisation every day that, she's not going to be there one day. And, it's just really tragic.
And what kind of work is it that you do?
I'm just working a food production place at the moment. They are helping me out. They're giving me time off as and when for my partner's appointments. They are, doing a good bit.
And I mean, you've got 4 children. That's so upsetting because they're very young, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. My main worry is that my 3-year-old won't remember me when I'm gone. With him only being 3, if I only live for 3 years, he's only going to be 6. And the only memories he will have are the memories what people tell him.
So what are you doing now then? I mean, are you working? What's your plan?
I'm currently, I am still employed, but I'm not allowed to go to work. We found out Thursday that it's now progressed to the brain. We don't know what that means. I've got to have radiotherapy to the brain next week. It's got a really good success rate, so hopefully it does something, but there's always the possibility that it might not.
Well, I mean, you're young. That's definitely on your side. They're coming up with all sorts of different advances in cancer.
Absolutely.
And I was reading one treatment the other day where they used the herpes virus to do something, and it somebody ended up being free of cancer for years. I mean, there's lots of things at the moment that we never know how successful that is. I've got a lady who came in. She works she set up a charity called Cure Cancer. And they told her that she had a short time to live. She's here like 20 years later.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there is that.
Brilliant.
And what about the children? How have you sort of spoken to them about it?
We're very open and honest. They know everything, but only what they need to know. They know that I'm very ill. I'm not going to live as long as other mums do. We won't get forever, and eventually I will have to go to heaven. But I'm going to fight for as long as I can. And that's basically all they need to know.
But today, it's your first time down in London as well.
Yes.
God, I can't believe it. You're 27.
Yeah.
You'll have been to London by then. And you're going to get to see the sights.
Absolutely.
That's brilliant. Our producers put together a list of things that you should go and see.
Yeah.
You should get to go and do that.
Definitely.
Well, listen, we really appreciate you coming to see us, and we
you
look
for
forward
having
to
us.
Yeah, get us some pictures of your weekend in London.
Yeah,
Oh, we will.
We'll send them in.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, with the children as well, they'll have lots of time with you too, anyway.
Yeah.
And in some ways, if you know how much, in a sense, how much time you have, you can make the most of it.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, we are trying, just trying to push stuff together, because before these types of diagnoses, you don't realise, do you? Time's precious, isn't it? And you take it for granted sometimes, and then you look back and you think, no, we could have been doing these things. It's just life lessons, isn't it? So, yeah, it was time to put up and show up and get on with stuff now. And
Yeah, do absolutely everything.
Yes.
Well, Ashley, it's really good to talk to you both, Ashley and Simon. And what advice would you say to other young women who, maybe, because obviously the whole GP system, it's all, I know doctors work very hard.
Absolutely.
But because they're so busy, it's sort of, things get missed.
Yeah. My advice is just advocate for yourself. If you think something's wrong, go with your gut and don't, no amount of testing is too much. If you feel something's wrong, ask for tests, because even if it comes back that there's nothing, at least you've tried, and it's nothing. But if it's something, you need to find it.
you need to catch it straight away, don't you?
Yeah, the quicker the better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ashley and Simon, it's been such a pleasure talking to you
thank
both.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your London weekend.
We will.
Don't forget pictures. We want some pictures.
Definitely.
Thank you very much for joining us. Okay, that is, of course, Ashley and her husband, Simon. Well, if you just joined me, this is GBNews. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, it is the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, are UK prisons too soft? The Chief Prisons Inspector, Charlie Taylor, has claimed that too many prisoners are binging on daytime TV like teenagers, saying that prisons have failed to introduce work-style regimes after COVID lockdowns. Former convict turned activist Winston Davies, whose mugging prevention TikTok went viral this week, will join me in the studio. And of course, former Tory Prisons Minister Anne Widdecombe will join us also, and she won't be holding back. But first, let's get an update with your weather.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and there'll be a scattering of showers across England and Wales, but drier further north. Here are the details. Starting in the southwest and across northern parts of Devon and Cornwall, there'll still be a few showers around this evening, but further south, it's looking mostly dry. There may still be a few showers continuing throughout the afternoon in the southeast as well, but for many, it'll be a fine end to the day. Showers will continue across much of Wales, though these will clear later this evening, leaving a mostly dry night, generally drier towards Cardiff and the south. Fewer showers are expected around the Midlands, with just a few isolated ones perhaps. These should quickly die away, meaning it will be a dry night for most, but chilly under clear skies. Towards the northeast, inland areas are likely to be largely dry with little cloud. Around the coast, though, it will be breezier and some showers are still likely here for a time. 1 or 2 showers around the coast of Scotland. Otherwise, it'll be a dry evening and it should stay that way overnight with a touch of frost in prone spots. It's a similar story for Northern Ireland, where any isolated showers will clear this evening. Clear skies mean it will be chilly tonight, but temperatures should stay above freezing. The daytime showers will mostly die out this evening, leaving a largely dry but chilly night under clear skies. That's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV.
on radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel. Britain's
News channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Good afternoon. If you've just joined me, where on earth have you been? Listen, it's coming up to 20 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it is time for our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, are UK prisons too soft? The Chief Inspector of Prisons, Charlie Taylor, has slammed the current system, claiming inmates are spending way too much time binging on daytime TV shows, things like This Morning with Holly and Phil, for now, instead of getting out of bed and going to work. Taylor has said that governors have failed to implement the typical 9-to-5 working day to keep prisoners in their cells in order to prevent violence on the blocks. He also claimed that there was a lack of experienced prison officers, increasing the potential for violent outbreaks. But the government has said that they're doing all they can to upskill workers to ensure they're able to assimilate back into society once they're released. Critics, though, have argued that it is time for prisoners to pull their fingers out and learn how to make an honest living, whilst others would say inmates need better incentives to flourish within the system. So, what do you think for the Great British Debate this hour? I'm asking, are UK prisons too soft? I'm joined now by former prisoner Winston Davis. Winston, you spent a short time in prison, not too long.
Yeah.
What for?
Possession of marijuana.
Oh dear, Winston, what are you doing? What are you doing? But anyway, you got out. But what, in your view, though, when you were there, did you feel that it was a little bit of a soft touch?
No, not at all. I mean, the fact of having your freedom taken away, that's a big thing. You know, when you don't have your name, you're stripped of pretty much everything you've got. That in itself, for me, was a big punishment, clearly a deterrent because I haven't returned. And it was an opportunity for me to learn skills which I've used since I've been out.
But the criticism is that people are in these prisons, nothing's much is happening, some of them in their cells for ages, and they're not really learning any skills. So all they're doing is just binging on things like daytime TV. I mean, I was reading one thing where they're on Twitter. There was a prisoner tweeting out to somebody that he'd done something to, and he was on Twitter, and he was... I mean, that is going on.
Yeah, I think at the moment the situation is that the prisons are overwhelmed, under-resourced. We've had COVID, so that's put a lot of restrictions. And I think, like the article says, prisons have been slow to get back to what should be a normal working environment. But the fact is, you've got prisons where you've got X amount of jobs and too many prisoners for those jobs. So the rest of the prisoners, they are going to be sitting there, maybe going to the gym, maybe going to healthcare or whatever it is to get out of their cell for a few hours, but not actually doing anything meaningful. So those prisoners, they need some way of getting them to actually work rather than just sitting there.
Because I know that we've talked about this before, and you've mentioned that there are people who you know are about to be released who've spent time just in cells doing pretty much nothing.
100%.
And even you are concerned about those people being released because they will not assimilate.
100%. But it goes back to then the question about how we see prisons. So the purpose of being people are going to prison and then the outcomes we're trying to get from that. So the purpose of being in prison, do we say that we just want to lock them up for as long as possible, 22, 23, 24 hours a day, and then they just get let out with no rehabilitation, and we pick up the bill for that because they're going to reoffend and come back in and it's 40-odd grand a year to keep them in prison? Or do we turn around and say, well, actually, no, we need to put a focus on the purpose of being in prison is to take away their freedom. That's the punishment. But the outcome of it is that we want them to be rehabilitated so they contribute back to society, don't go back to prison, and that we don't have to pick up the bill for it.
But currently prisons aren't doing that. So in your view, you said that you don't think they're too soft, but they are. If they're just sitting there watching TV, doing nothing...
They need to put in structures in place that incentivise the prisoners to actually, like I said, pull their finger out, like you said a minute ago. But that's a change in shape of the whole of the prison landscape. That's not just saying, get it out of bed. You actually need to give them incentives and actually show them. There's not enough resources put into mental health services. There's not enough resources put into training of officers, building up rapport with the prisoners. So therefore, there's not enough to actually get them moving at the moment.
But with all that, then all they're going to do is sit down and watch daytime TV. So in my view, them doing that makes the prisons pretty soft. I mean, they're just watching TV, isn't it?
But as it stands at the moment, there's nothing for them to do. And if you leave them to do nothing, they're likely that have not been working or struggled with working, struggled with mental health, lack of education is what got them in prison in the first place. So if you don't give them a structure and something to follow and mandate that they need to get out and work 9 to 5 like a normal working person, and that they need to be doing the things that normal people would do when they're going to get released, as the article says, then yeah, they are going to sit around. It is going to be too soft.
It seems a bit annoying, though, that, you know, I think a lot of the victims of these crimes, if they're still alive in many cases, will be quite annoyed to see that. They're just sitting around doing... We would like to see them do some sort of hard graft.
Yeah, 100%, but then they're going to be more annoyed when they see these people getting out after a year, 2 years, and going to commit a crime to somebody else.
Well, let's bring in Tory Prisons Minister, former Tory Prisons Minister, Anne Widdecombe. Anne, thank you very much for joining me. So, Anne, in your view, though, UK prisons, do you think they're too soft?
I don't think soft is the right word. They're utterly purposeless. And I said this, 20 years ago. I mean, the centrepiece of my party conference speech when I was Shadow Home Secretary in 1998, having been Prisons Minister and known fully well what was going on and visited then every single prison that then was. The point is that what we should have is an ordinary working day in which the prisoner spends a full day, as you and I understand that to mean, either in education or in the prison workshops or in a mixture of the two. And that is the order in very, very few of Her Majesty's prisons. In most of them, there is intense idleness. And of course, if you come in through the prison gates and you spend some years in idleness, what do we expect people to do when they leave the prison gates except to continue in idleness?
Well, that's exactly what Winston was saying, actually. But he said this. Winston pointed out that there wasn't really enough jobs for the people to do anyway. So in the prison, they've got limited jobs, so not everyone can get off their backside and work, even if they wanted to.
The stupid thing about this is that when you ask ministers why aren't there more job opportunities, they will always quote to you resources. But in fact, if you ran prison workshops, and I've been saying this for years, like any little independent enterprise, so that the prisoners make something or whatever it is, and any profits from that come back into that workshop. They don't go off to the exchequer or get counted against the prison budget or whatever it might be. And if only we saw prison workshops in that sense, instead of looking at them as a taxpayer-funded, somehow optional extra, we'd make an awful lot of progress. But some prisons ministers have focused on this. When he was Justice Secretary, Michael Gove focused on rehabilitation. But they're gone. They're gone in a couple of years. And then the whole thing just carries on.
Well, they keep getting rid of their ministers. Let's hope that they can be sensible and try and hold on to the ones they've got now for these few years. They've got to try and convince us that their plan will work. Let's hope it does. But the government would say that figures show the number of prisoners reoffending has actually fallen just over 25%. So something is working. I mean, they might think that they're doing a good job.
Well, there may have been a slight fall in recidivism, but we've still got a very high rate of recidivism, particularly if you look at some other countries. And the fact is, it's no good saying that the fall in recidivism proves that prisons are working. Prisons work on several levels, and the one they always work on is that while they've got people in custody, lo and behold, they can't be committing crimes. So that does protect the public. But the public need the longer-term protection that when those people are released, they don't create more victims. And that actually means using time in prison. And as I said in that party conference speech, anybody who comes into prison for any more than 6 months and who enters the prison gates unable to read and write, and 75% at that time were in that category, 3/4 were in that category, should, when they left the prison gates, be able to read and write. And that seems to me so fundamental.
Well, I'm going to bring Winston in. I mean, Anne's making perfect sense to me. Does that... I mean, why is Anne not Prisons Minister now? What do you think, Winston? She's got a point, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is that the mental health issues within the prison system is up to 60%, around 60% of all prisoners suffer from mental health issues. And actually, it's all well and good telling we're going to put these activities on, we're going to put education on, we're going to put work on for them. But actually, if mentally they're not stable, if they've not had therapy, if they've not had to resolve trauma that they've been through whilst growing up and what's led them to be in prison in the first place, then actually the outward output of actually being in employment and education won't work. And for me, I had that internal drive that I wanted to move on. But not everyone's going to have that. So, you know, we've got to work on their mental state and resolving the issues which actually led them to be in prison before we can start saying to them, go out and start, go and get an education, because they might not be in a position mentally to do that.
Sorry, Anne, you go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I need a lot of convincing that the main reason that people are in prison is because of their mental health. That will apply to some, undeniably. And I'd also be the first to acknowledge that for those to whom it does apply, the service doesn't always come up to scratch. But the vast majority of people who are in prison are not there because they have a mental health problem. They're there because, and let's face it, they have seen crime as the solution to whatever difficulties they had. And I'm interested that Winston was there for marijuana possession. He must be one of the very few who actually end up in prison for that, because, we're remarkably soft on, at least small amounts of marijuana possession we're remarkably soft on. In fact, 80% of all acquisitive crime is because of drugs. And if we crack down on the drug scene, we might actually get a real impact on crime in general. So I'm not going to buy into the mental health. I mean, as soon as I say we need activity, Winston comes in and says, but that's not enough. You must do something else before it. No, you have to do it all, but no excuses. If you've committed a crime, you go into prison. The prison regime should be purposeful. If they're not purposeful, all they do is result in idleness and more crime.
Well, that's... Winston, do you respond to that?
I would say that, go back to your point about 80% of all crime is around drugs, and you're saying about crack down on crime. I've been trying to crack down on crime for over 50 years. It's not working. There needs to be a rethink on the whole drugs laws and the whole how you're actually going to police drugs and legalisation, particularly of marijuana. I know I was convicted of it, but the actual convictions of marijuana and these lower-end drugs, it's not working. You can walk down any street in London and there are people that are smoking weed. There are people that are using these drugs. The thing of what we've got at the moment with the drug policies, it's not working. This war on drugs is not working. And you saying crack down on drugs, more and more drugs, and people are taking more and more drugs are being put onto the streets. So that's not actually the answer.
But Anne's point was that the majority of people in prison are usually with drug-related offences. So if we tackle that element,
yeah. But then if we tackle that and actually talk about the policies around drugs and seeing what these people are going into prison for, then that resource can go elsewhere. They can go into sorting out education, sorting out poverty, sorting out mental health issues. So it's not straightforward as that.
And final word to you.
I really can't let Winston get away with talking about legalising. If you legalise the soft drugs, all the drugs barons' profits will be in the hard drugs. And if you look at what happened in Amsterdam, where there's been a study, when soft drug use goes up, which nearly always follows legalisation, so does hard drug use. And that is the big danger. So, no, I am not in favour of legalising. And as for, the war against drugs has failed, we've never really fought that war against drugs. And another thing that I did when I was Shadow Home Secretary was to actually make proposals for actually fighting the drugs, because we don't. We're very soft. I'm amazed that Winston ever ended up in prison for it.
You must have had a lot on. Well, listen, Anne, thank you so much for joining me. That's Anne Widdecombe. She's the former Prisons Minister. And also Winston Davis. Winston, thank you very much for coming into the studio and joining me. Well, if you've just tuned in, this is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, we'll continue with our Great British Debate, and I'm asking, are UK prisons too soft? Although I should be asking, should we legalise drugs? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and comedian Leo Kearse. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
It's 5:33. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The Labour leader's accusing the Chancellor of gambling the mortgages and finances of the British people with what he's calling casino economics. Sir Keir Starmer echoed claims from the Institute of Fiscal Studies, which say the Chancellor's mini-budget puts government debt on an unsustainable rising path, something Kwasi Kwarteng denies. Speaking this afternoon, Sir Keir says the mini-budget does nothing for working people.
And after 12 long years of Tory failure, didn't they just show their true colours yesterday? Their driving ideology, make the rich richer and do nothing for working people. Well, this conference is our chance to set out the alternative, to make our case, an economy that works for working people, growth for everyone, everywhere, wherever they are, a fairer, greener future.
Arriving in Liverpool this afternoon for his party's conference, Sir Keir is expected to set out a number of key policies. Among them, the pledge to create a national care service. Labour claims 13% of care homes need improvement. Plans for the service include better pay, workers' rights and training. More than 700 people have been arrested at protests across Russia. A warning some viewers may find the following footage distressing. The arrests come after President Vladimir Putin ordered the country's first military draft since World War II for the conflict in Ukraine. Footage from one protest shows Russian officers dragging men and leading women to police vans. According to rights monitoring group OVD Info, there were protests in 32 cities from St. Petersburg to Siberia. And King Charles has been photographed with his red box for the first time. The picture taken last week shows the King carrying out official government duties at Buckingham Palace. Red boxes hold papers from government ministers in the UK and the Commonwealth. TV online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. It's back to Nana Akua in just a moment.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel, Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Good afternoon. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. Right, so it's time for our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, are UK prisons too soft? The Chief Inspector of Prisons, Charlie Taylor, has slammed the current system, claiming inmates are spending way too much time binging on TV shows instead of getting out of bed and going to work. Well, hopefully if there are jobs for them, but as Winston pointed out, a lot of prisons don't have enough jobs for the prisoners. But the government has said that they are doing all they can to upskill workers. Critics would argue that it's time for prisoners to pull their fingers out and learn how to make an honest living, whilst others would say inmates need better incentives to flourish within the system. So, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, are UK prisons too soft? Now, before we speak to my panel, let's see what you've been saying. Lois thinks, I think life inside prisons has become too comfortable now that inmates ignore opportunities to escape. It's true. Connor says, my lad was terrified before going into jail. A week later, he told me he was having a right good old laugh. The whole system's a joke. And Philip says, watching daytime TV is not what the majority of prisoners want to be doing. Some workshops can allow prisoners to earn up to £30 a week to spend at the prison shop. That's what most want to do. Interesting. Right, well, let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and comedian Leo Cass. I think I'll start with you again, Leo, on this one.
Right.
Have you been to prison?
Have
you been to prison?
I've been to prison, but only in a work capacity,
Okay.
looking at the drug markets in prison. But yeah, I think prison is probably a little bit too soft. Maybe not because of what we traditionally think. You know, I think traditionally we think the prisoners are being given all these treats and PlayStations and all the rest of it. I think it's just cheaper to let them sit and watch TV than it is to find opportunities for them to upskill themselves, to learn things, pursue a degree or actually work. I think that takes a lot of manpower and a lot of time and money to do. So it'd be nice to see some extra investment. Even though I don't like the state spending money, it'd be nice to see a bit of extra investment in these prisoners.
I think they should be totally... You're supposed to be stripped of your privileges, aren't you, when you go to prison? If, you know, I would say give them a mattress, a pillow, and then see how they get on. And then, you know, you're rewarded. And that's how... And you're supposed to be stopping them from going back to prison as well. It's supposed to be a deterrent, thinking, I'll never want to go back there again. And sadly, there's like 39% of adult offenders re-offend and go back to prison, which is a high number.
With your thing, I just, in my head, saw somebody literally with a ball and chain attached to a wall with a mattress and a little thing to go to the toilet in. Really,
But you primarily want them to be reformed, don't you? And I think to give them a craft and learn something new is the way forward.
Yeah.
But not to have them there sit and watch TV. I know someone that was in prison. They got sent in a PlayStation. They were having, feet up, not doing anything, just biding their time till their days were done.
Yeah, I mean, and some of them, because it's very expensive out here, you know, some people, if you're going to be housed, a lot of people, some prisoners may have come from the streets, so to be housed and fed and given TV, electricity, heat, I know that some people who will go back into prison just for that, because there's almost like a security blanket there. But at the same token, if you were somewhere like, say, a prison in Africa, there's somewhere you don't want to go.
No.
So I think in that respect, I kind of agree with you, Leo, that they are a little bit too soft because our Western standards in terms of comfort are a lot higher than other places. So, for example, in Africa, well, Africa's, coming up, but there are the prison system, I don't think the prisons will be as comfortable as these ones.
Yeah, and prison is only really a deterrent to people who have a good life outside prison. If you don't, like you said, you're housed, you're fed, you've got entertainment, you could be in with your buddies. So it's not going to be a deterrent to some people. They're going to see it as a sort of revolver. It's worth committing the crime because going to prison isn't that bad. When you come out, you can deal drugs or whatever you're doing.
It shouldn't be like Champneys having a lovely stay in a retreat. It's supposed to be hard and tough, and you miss all your privileges. That's what it should be. And
Winston said that it is sort of that because you've got your liberty that's taken away from you. That's what he was saying. He said that it is actually quite tough in there.
But then that's a punishment if you've got a wife, a family, a girlfriend, things like that. If you've got a job outside prison, if you've got things you need to keep paying money on, then going into prison, being unable to work, that's a punishment. But if you're not, if you're just a petty criminal, stealing things to get money for drugs, then going to prison and you can still get the drugs in prison. They need to absolutely clamp down. The reason I was in Belmarsh was because of the drug markets in the prison. We're seeing a lot of overdoses. You know, people couldn't just get drugs in prison. They could get enough drugs to overdose. So we really need to clamp down on those drug markets in prison.
What would you say to Winston's comment that actually they need to be given some sort of livelihood there? Obviously, it feels like you're pandering to the convict rather than the victim. The victim, well, literally, there's a little bit of support, but the victims are left on a lot of the time on their own to deal with what's happened to them, which is usually not even their fault. But if we put that aside and we look at the prisoners, Winston was talking about work in prison and things like that to give the people something to sort of look for, so they move out, they work.
Yeah,
I agree.
Absolutely agree. Yeah, I mean, it would be great to have people see the sort of the carrot as well as the stick, so they see if they live a good life and don't commit crime and work hard, they can have, you know, all the things that they want, and they don't need to go and steal from houses or sell drugs or whatever.
They need to be reformed, basically, and they shouldn't be going back, and they are going back. They're reoffending and going back to prison, so something isn't working.
And I hear that one of the biggest reasons why people reoffend is obviously because they can't get work and things like that. That's why they will go back. That's what Winston was saying. They'll literally go back because they can't get a job, because they don't really have any training. They literally have been cooped up in this room watching daytime TV or whatever it is. Yeah. And then there's somebody out on the streets. They do have, I think it's the D category prisons that some of them get put into so they get more used to life on the outside. Yeah. But there aren't enough places in those, and many of them just end up out of prison having spent all that time watching TV.
We've got to make living a law-abiding life and contributing to society, that's got to be the lucrative option. And that's why tax cuts are great, because now if those prisoners get a job, they get to keep more of that money.
Exactly.
It stays in their pocket, there's less of an incentive.
But they need to get tougher so they won't want to go back.
Yes.
Let me be the prison warden.
Oh, I think they probably enjoy that. Right, well, this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voice, your opportunity to tell us about the topics that we're discussing. Tell us what you really think. Where should we go? Should we go to Kidderminster? Should we go there?
I love a bit of Kidderminster.
We'll have a chat with John Reid, because I think he's worked or helped out in prisons before. John, hello.
Good afternoon, Nana. Good afternoon.
Yeah, John, what's your view on this? I know you've got some experience of the prison service type thing.
Yes, I was last in prison on Thursday, so I can bring you the up-to-date news if you like.
What, they let you out?
I would agree. Yeah, they did, yeah. I would agree 100% with Winston. He knows what he's talking about. I would have some sympathy with Anne. 75% perhaps of what she says I would agree with. Part of what your two people in the studio are saying, I think I can see the point, but I'd like to make the following point, Nana, if I may. Rehabilitation is certainly the key, but nobody can be rehabilitated unless they want to be. You can't make these people go for education. And it's not only the men that you lock up, well, and some women too, it's the families. They've got to want to go back to a family life and a reasonable existence. And some can't, you know. As I came out of prison on Tuesday of last week, there was a guy sat outside with a plastic bag with all his belongings in them. He had no phone. He had £100 in money, which was his £80 that they give you when you leave, plus £20 of his own. He was supposed to be at the probation office within about an hour of when I met him. And it was only because I put him in my car and drove him to the nearest railway station that he stood any chance whatsoever. He even had to use my phone to ring the probation office to say I'm sorry. And of course they didn't reply, they just got an answering machine. But to go back to prison, I don't see really anybody that I come in contact with laying about watching TV all day. Yes, there are TVs in there. Yes, there are radios in there. Yes, I've made videos myself that have gone out on the TV station, which is called Way Out TV, basically an educational service. There are lots of good things going on, but you tell me how many government ministers actually visit a prison and see what's going on. I don't think there's many. Rory Stewart used to, but he was one of the few. And I don't really understand how they legislate for it when they don't really understand what's going on. And last but not least, there are no votes in it, are there? If my local MP stood up and said, vote for me, I'm going to sort the prisons out, I would certainly vote for him. But how many people would? It's a funny old world. It's a really, really deep subject. And I think rehabilitation is certainly the key.
Well, listen, it's been good to talk to you. Thank you for that. Rehabilitation is the key. That's John in Kidderminster. He's our great British voice. Well, today I've been asking, are UK prisons too soft? Lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. Gary says, after working for over 30 years in the service, it most definitely is. He thinks it's too soft and he works in it. Kevin says, I think they should be forced to do hard labour. Prisons are supposed to be a deterrent, not a holiday camp. He's with you, Lizzie. Catherine says, absolutely, they should be paying back to the community, working on more projects like trimming, painting and litter picking. Sheena says, yes, it's too soft. I know someone who was in prison that bragged about having a PS5 TV and radio. And Jim says, I am worried that if criminals do not fear the police or the prison system, then there will be no disincentive to behave unlawfully. Well, you and me both, good point. Well, stay with me because I've got another story that caught my eye. Listen to this. Britain is failing in the war on obesity. A top NHS advisor has warned as the majority of doctors are ignoring patients' weight issues. Many family doctors weigh patients every year and do not know more, says Professor Paul Aviard, who advises NHS England on obesity. Let's see what my panel think of that. Lizzie and Leo, I'll start with you, Lizzie. Obesity. People keep saying there's a crisis. I don't really see that many obese people.
There is. There's a huge crisis, yeah, and it puts a huge strain on the NHS, one of our biggest killers, and there are a lot of, affects your heart, diabetes and many others. And I think it's very good in schools that they are weighing kids and checking on their weight. A lot of people disagree with that, but my son was actually, they told me, my son was bordering being obese, and I couldn't believe it, to be honest, because I was just thinking he loves his food. My mum used to give him double portions, he used to lick his plate, and I said, oh, he's a great eater, and giving food is love. But they said, look, he's overweight. He's actually near obese. So we had to then limit what he ate and got him into football, which was the best thing I ever did. And my marriage was splitting up at the time. And I just thought giving food is love, but not always. And obesity is very frightening. And, it is...
But sometimes I think they say, oh, it's a huge crisis, huge crisis. And I see people overweight, but... and I used to train people, and I'm very much into my health and fitness and things, but I think sometimes it feels like, they're saying, oh, everyone's obese. I go to schools all the time and lecture in schools. Most of the kids I see aren't obese.
The fat ones are at the bottom of the stairs. They can't make it up to see you. That's what's happening there. No, I think there is a huge problem with obesity in the UK, and it's got worse because of lockdown. The government locked us in our houses for a year and a half in front of the TV, right next to the fridge. So obviously everybody got fat. It was a ridiculous policy, and now we're seeing the repercussions from that, and it's going to cost the country. It cost the country a huge amount of money.
Lockdown is not the reason for obesity. It was there long before.
Oh, but it definitely made it worse.
Some people went from fit to fat. Some people went from fat to fit. It was just depending.
Well, overall, people got fatter. That's definitely what happened.
My friend always says, I've still got my lockdown fat.
My friend was very upset at how big she'd got, and she went to me, I'm fat, aren't I? She's got a lovely accent. I said, do you want me to be honest?
Do you want me
it's not like me, is it? Right. Well, let's see now. It's time for our quickfire quiz. This is the part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other topics hitting the headlines. Right. So if you've just tuned in, I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and comedian Leo Kearse. Right. Lizzie, let's hear your buzzer. Leo. You're very upset. Leo normally gets Lizzie's buzzer. You should see him scrubbing around the box. He didn't know what to do. She went first. But it matches her outfit. Now, remember, do not press the buzzers unless I've finished the question. If you do that, you're out. No. Question number one. All right, and please play along at home. Number one, an Anglican church has decided to replace a stained glass window depicting slave trader Edward Colson. But what with? Is it A, an image of the Queen with her beloved Prince Philip? Is it B, Jesus on a migrant boat? Or is it C, a picture of the Archbishop of Canterbury?
Oh, that was pretty close.
I think the ding-dong one was first. Who was that?
That was me.
Leo.
Yeah, sorry, Lizzie. It was Jesus on a migrant boat.
Well, let's see if it was Jesus on a migrant boat. You don't think it was, but it is. He is. It's true. St Mary Redcliffe Church in Bristol made the move after Colson's statue was toppled back in 2020. Members of the public sent in new designs as part of a competition to replace 4 stained glass windows. So I'm going to ask, what do you think? Have they gone woke?
Yes.
It's a nonsense. I missed the passage in the Bible where Jesus crossed the channel to be put up in a hotel by the British taxpayer.
He walked on water, though. He didn't need a boat.
He did. Right. He changed water into wine. I wish he'd do that now.
Yeah, that'd be nice as well. Right, so question 2. 2 girls playing the flute in Hong Kong made the news, but why? Was it A, they were only 4 years old, B, they were both wearing 2 face masks at the same time, or C, they won a world-renowned classical music competition? Lizzie.
I'd love it to be B. They were wearing face masks. I really don't know.
Well, do you know what? You're right. Wearing face masks at the same time.
I have to see it.
Released. There it is by Hong Kong's Education Bureau, showing the two young girls playing the flute in between two masks. Yes, leaving a gap for the mouth. What's the point of that? The country aims to achieve COVID-0. Don't they know that there's a hole in the mask? There's no point to it. Not one, but two masks. Absurd. Right, let's do question 3. Last night, when tennis legend Roger Federer last ever match, but something unusual occurred on court before he played. Well, what was it? Was it A, a streaker ran across the court? Was it B, a man set fire to his arm? Or was it C, a man proposed to his girlfriend in the middle of the match? Lizzie.
B. Set fire to his arm.
It is true, a man set fire to his arm. Lizzie, you're on a winning streak.
I'm on a streak. I'm on fire myself.
Yes. Well, so during a Labour Cup match, a man set fire to his arm in protest against the use of private jets. The protester put the fire out by shaking his arm before he promptly was removed by security guards. Do I need to ask you what you make of that?
Absolute. I haven't got words. I'll be taken off air.
There's no words to that, just foolish.
It's making me hungry.
Is it really?
Yeah, I want to eat an Extinction Rebellion protest with
barbecued.
Yeah.
Well, listen, let's do question 4. Homeowners who stretch their borrowing to get onto the property ladder or to buy bigger may be in for a major setback, multiple increases in base rates. But how much more could they need to earn a year to meet higher mortgage costs? Closest answer wins. Come on, quick.
More a year?
Yeah, go on.
£13,000.
90,000 £90,000. £7,000, Leo. You were the closest.
Sorry about that. That's what I say to that.
Finally a point for Leo. Well done.
I've got 2 now.
You have. So earlier this week, the Bank of England put up its base rate for the 7th time. It's now 2.25%, the highest since 2008. Right, and your final question. A bride was left at the altar by her policeman fiancé, but continued to celebrate the day anyway. Is that true or false? Leo?
It's true.
Of course it's true. Why would you ruin your day? I'd be like, hey, look, I've got this dress, I've got these shoes, I've got these presents, I've got these... Bring it on.
Hair done, makeup.
I'm so glad. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me, darling. Half of yours is half of mine. Yes, the 27-year-old bride, Kaylee Steyn, found out her policeman fiancé didn't want to go through with the wedding in the morning. She decided to go ahead with the celebrations costing 12 grand. Anyway.
What a swine, not a cruel man.
How would you carry on with that?
Oh, I'd carry on, definitely.
It'd be worse to marry them if they didn't want to.
Well, exactly. Can you imagine going down the aisle and you're stuck with him and he doesn't love you?
I wanted to get married in Wetherspoons. They do a 3 grand package.
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh, dear.
But my missus wouldn't let me.
I'm not surprised.
I'm so glad I'm not your wife.
Yeah, poor woman. On today's show, we've been asking, is docking benefits a good incentive to work more? And according to our Twitter poll, well, 72% of you say yes, and 28% of you say no. Well, I've got to say a big thank you so much to my wonderful panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also comedian, I say that loosely, Leo Kerr.
I've got a gig tonight.
Yeah. Is it still on the channel?
I'm going to get heckled.
Yeah, here we go. And a big thank you to you at home for your company. I'll be back tomorrow at 4 to discuss the stories with Danny Kelly and editor of the Sunday People, Nigel Nelson. I'll leave you with the weather. Enjoy your day.
Looking ahead to this evening's weather, and there'll be a scattering of showers across England and Wales, but drier further north. Here are the details. Starting in the southwest and across northern parts of Devon and Cornwall, there'll still be a few showers around this evening, but further south, it's looking mostly dry. There may still be a few showers continuing throughout the afternoon in the southeast as well, but for many, it'll be a fine end to the day. Showers will continue across much of Wales, though these will clear later this evening, leaving a mostly dry night, generally drier towards Cardiff and the south. Fewer showers are expected around the Midlands, with just a few isolated ones perhaps. These should quickly die away, meaning it will be a dry night for most, but chilly under clear skies. Towards the northeast, inland areas are likely to be largely dry with little cloud. Around the coast, though, it will be breezier and some showers are still likely here for a time. 1 or 2 showers around the coast of Scotland. Otherwise, it'll be a dry evening and it should stay that way overnight with a touch of frost in prone spots. It's a similar story for Northern Ireland, where any isolated showers will clear this evening. Clear skies mean it will be chilly tonight, but temperatures should stay above freezing. The daytime showers will mostly die out this evening, leaving a largely dry but chilly night under clear skies. That's how the weather is shaping up overnight into tomorrow morning.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Are authorities, are communities doing all they can to combat violent crime? With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News. We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
For helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales
And Northern Ireland. On TV.
on radio, and online.
We're proud